Have you noticed that people who don't celebrate birthdays are the same ones who have learned not to expect anything from anyone? There is something disturbing about this indifference. While the whole world treats birthdays as milestones, as days that deserve attention, some people simply let them pass. They don't make plans, they don't expect messages. Sometimes they even forget the date. And when someone asks, "So are you doing anything special?" the answer comes with a somewhat awkward smile. "Oh, it's just another day." But is it really? Because behind that simple phrase, "it's just another day," there is a whole emotional story that no one tells. There is a silent learning process. There is invisible protection. And perhaps there is also a fear that you have never named. There is nothing wrong with not celebrating. Not everyone likes to be the center of attention. Not everyone feels they need cake, balloons, or group hugs to feel that life is worth living. Some people are genuinely introspective, self-sufficient, detached from social rituals. And that's okay. But here's the question no one asks. Do you really not care? Or have you just learned not to care? Because there's a huge difference between choosing not to celebrate and simply accepting that there was never anything to celebrate. Between being indifferent out of maturity and being indifferent out of protection. Between not needing external validation and being afraid to receive it. And if you're one of those people, or know someone like that, you may have noticed that behind the apparent tranquility there is something deeper. An emotional scar disguised as wisdom. A refusal to participate in the social spectacle that everyone expects of you. Or maybe just the echo of a day in the past that hurt too much to be forgotten. So the real question isn't why don't you celebrate your birthday? The question is, what happened that made you stop expecting anything from it? There is a specific moment in the lives of many of these people. A moment they don't tell anyone about, but which has remained engraved in their memory. Maybe it was a childhood birthday where no one showed up. Or a teenage birthday where the most important person forgot. Or simply a day when you realized with painful clarity that no one was really paying attention. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't a tragedy, it was just silence. The absence of something that should have been there. And the human brain is smart. It learns fast. It understands that the pain of disappointment is worse than the pain of loneliness. So it makes a silent agreement with you. If you don't expect anything, I'll protect you from getting hurt again. And so without you realizing it, your birthday is no longer a special day. It becomes just another day. Not because you consciously decided that, but because the only way not to be disappointed was to stop expecting. This is the emotional trap that almost no one recognizes. You start by calling it detachment. Then it becomes maturity. And in the end, you really believe that you don't care, that you don't need any of it, that parties and celebrations are superficial, childish, unnecessary. And part of you is right, because there is indeed a maturity in not depending on external rituals to feel valuable. But there's another part. The part that learned not to ask, not to wait, not to take up space, not to bother anyone. The part that deep down still remembers that child or teenager who waited for something that never came and decided never to put themselves in that position again. Freud called this reactive formation, when you turn an unfulfilled desire into its exact opposite. You wanted to be remembered, but you learned to say you don't care. You wanted to be celebrated, but now you say that celebrations are silly. And the scariest part? You believe it. Because your brain doesn't want you to suffer again. So it rewrites the narrative. It convinces you that you chose this indifference, that it's yours, that it defines you. But choice and conditioning are very different things. Think about it. When was the last time someone wanted to celebrate you and you let them? When was the last time you allowed someone to do something special for you without minimizing it? Without saying you didn't have to? Without turning the moment into something uncomfortable? If the answer is slow in coming, maybe the problem isn't that you don't like celebrations. Maybe it's that you don't know how to receive them anymore. Because there is a brutal vulnerability in being celebrated. When someone says happy birthday, what that person is really saying is, you matter. Your existence is relevant. I remember you. And for someone who has learned not to expect that, hearing that phrase can be almost unbearable. Because it exposes you. Because it creates expectations. Because it puts you in a position where you have to believe, even for a second, that you deserve it. And if you've spent years convincing yourself otherwise, well, it's easier to pretend you don't care. So you smile, thank them quickly, and change the subject. You treat the congratulations as a social formality, not as a declaration of affection. And at the end of the day, when everyone has forgotten, you find yourself thinking, see, I was right, it's no big deal. But the truth is you didn't test it. You didn't let the moment happen. You aborted the connection before it could reach you. Because deep down, there is still that fear. The fear that if you allow someone to truly celebrate you, and then that person disappears, the pain will be the same as before, or worse. Kierkegaard would say that you are living in unconscious despair, a state where you distance yourself from your own essence to avoid the anguish of being yourself. You build a persona of someone who is cool, calm, who doesn't need anything. And that persona works. It protects you. But it also imprisons you, because you are not indifferent. You are careful, excessively careful. And there is a huge difference between not needing validation and being so afraid of it that you pretend it doesn't affect you. The question is not whether you should celebrate your birthday. The question is, can you? Can you genuinely put yourself at the center of something? Can you receive attention without guilt, without discomfort, without minimizing it? Or does this idea scare you so much that you prefer to call it detachment? Because if the answer is the latter, then it's not about the birthday. It never was. It's about you having learned at some point in your life that taking up space is dangerous, that being seen is risky, that the less you ask for, the less you'll be disappointed. And maybe that saved you once. But now, is it still serving you? Modern society has a strange relationship with happiness. It doesn't just expect you to be happy. It demands that you show that you are happy, that you post, that you share, that you turn every meaningful moment into visual content. And birthdays, of course, are one of the most closely watched rituals. Byung-Chul Han, a South Korean philosopher, talks about the society of fatigue, a world where you are no longer exploited by a boss, but by yourself, where the pressure doesn't come from outside but from within. You are, at the same time, the exploiter and the exploited. And one of the most subtle forms of this self-exploitation is the obligation to be happy in public. So when your birthday comes around, it's not enough to be fine. You have to look fine. You have to respond to messages, post on your stories, thank everyone for their birthday wishes as if each one matters equally. And if you don't do that, if you let the day pass in silence, well, people will find it strange. They'll ask if everything is okay. They will interpret your absence as sadness, as a problem, as something that needs to be fixed. And maybe that's exactly why you don't celebrate. Because for you, celebrating isn't about cake or gifts. It's about performance. It's about meeting a social expectation that you didn't ask to carry. It's about faking excitement you don't feel just to make others feel comfortable. And at some point you got tired. You realized that it's more honest and less exhausting to simply not participate. That's not coldness. That's resistance. You're not rejecting people's affection. You're rejecting the theater of affection, the performative version of human connection that has become the norm, where happy birthday is often more automatic than genuine, where people send you messages because Instagram notified them, not because they remembered you, where you're forced to thank 47 identical messages as if each one were special. And in the midst of it all you think, does anyone really care? Or is everyone just following protocol? That doubt is legitimate, and it eats away at you, because if you can't tell the difference between what's genuine and what's automatic, then what's the point of celebrating? Why should you be moved by something that deep down feels more like a social obligation than a real celebration? So you choose silence. You turn off Facebook notifications. You don't tell anyone. You let the day pass like any other. And when someone finds out later and says, "Oh, I didn't even know," you respond with that slight smile. It's okay, it's no big deal. And you really believe that. Because in your mind, you're not protecting yourself from disappointment. You're freeing yourself from a sham. But here's the problem. You may be right about the sham and still be hurting yourself. Because not every display of affection is fake just because it's public. Not every message is empty just because it was sent by several people. And not every celebration is performative just because it involves other people. Sometimes people really want to celebrate you. They just don't know how to do it in a way that you accept. And therein lies the trap. You've created such a rigid standard of what an authentic celebration should be that nothing ever fits. You want people to celebrate you, but only in the right way, only at the right time, only when it's genuine enough. And since you can never be absolutely sure of someone's intentions, you simply dismiss everything. And so what started as resistance to superficiality turned into resistance to connection. You're not just rejecting the spectacle. You're rejecting being seen, because being seen is risky. Being seen means that people can disappoint you, that they can forget you next year, that they can celebrate you today and disappear tomorrow. And you already know that pain. You've been there, so you've learned to anticipate it, to cut the cycle off before it starts. But in doing so, you've also cut off the possibility of something different, of someone who really wants to celebrate you, of a moment that could, yes, be genuine. You threw out the dirty water from the basin, but along with it went the baby. And the worst part? You don't even realize it, because you've internalized this narrative so much. I don't need this. I'm different. I value what's real. that any attempt by someone to celebrate you is already filtered through your distrust. You can no longer receive without analyzing, without questioning, without reducing the gesture to an empty social performance. And maybe deep down you know this. Maybe you've already felt that tightness in your chest when someone really tried to do something for you, and you blocked it. When someone wanted to give you attention, and you turned away. When someone said you deserve it, and you thought, no, I don't deserve it. Because if you don't celebrate your own birthday, maybe it's not just because you don't like parties. Maybe it's because deep down you don't believe you deserve to be celebrated. And that's the part that hurts. The part you hide even from yourself. The part that turns a day that should be about you into another day where you disappear. And now comes the part that no one likes to admit. The part where you need to look at yourself and ask, do I really not care? Or am I afraid to care? Because there's a huge difference between being someone who doesn't need external validation and being someone who has learned to reject external validation before it can reach you. Between being self-sufficient and being emotionally locked up. Kierkegaard had a disturbing concept called unconscious despair. He said that most people live in despair without knowing it. They build a whole life avoiding the anguish of being themselves, avoiding choices, avoiding being seen, avoiding taking up space, and they do it so efficiently that they don't even notice. They call it practicality, maturity, being well-adjusted. But underneath all that calm, there is a person who has never allowed themselves to truly show up. And maybe that's exactly what's happening to you. You say you don't celebrate because you don't need to, because it's silly, because you've grown up and know that life isn't made up of childish rituals. And part of that is true. You have matured. You have truly understood that the value of your existence is not concentrated in a single day of the year, that you don't need a cake to know that your life matters. But there's another layer, the layer you don't examine. The layer that whispers very quietly deep down. What if I let someone celebrate me, and then that person disappears? What if I believe that I matter, and next year no one remembers? What if I take up this space, and realize that no one really wanted me to? That's the real anguish. And you've learned to silence it by saying you don't care. But not caring and being afraid to care are completely different things. Think about it. When was the last time you truly received something? Not just accepted it, not just said a quick thank you and changed the subject, but received it. Allowed someone to do something for you without minimizing it, without saying you didn't have to, without turning the gesture into something uncomfortable. When was the last time you let someone celebrate you truly, without feeling like you were a burden? If the answer took a while to come, then it's not about the birthday. It's about you not knowing how to be vulnerable anymore, because receiving is vulnerable. When someone gives you attention, when someone cares about you, when someone says you matter, you're exposed. You have to believe even for a second that you deserve it. And if you've spent years building an emotional fortress where you're the only one who decides your own worth, where you never depend on anyone else to feel complete, then letting someone into that fortress is terrifying. Because what if that person disappoints you? What if they forget next year? What if their affection is temporary? So you cut the cycle off before it begins. You anticipate the pain. You say, I don't need that before anyone can offer it to you. And so you never get hurt. But you also never connect. You're safe, but you're alone. And the worst part is that you don't even realize it, because you've called this loneliness emotional independence. There's a quote from Kierkegaard that should bother you. The greatest tragedy is not to suffer, but to live without knowing who you are. And maybe you've spent so much time avoiding being seen that you've forgotten who you are when no one is looking. You've become so good at not needing anything that you've lost the ability to want anything, to ask, to put yourself in a position where someone can give you something, or deny you. And that's where the real fear lies. It's not the fear of celebrating. It's the fear of being denied, of asking for something, even symbolically, and not receiving it. So you stop asking, you stop hoping, you stop putting yourself in that position. And over time, you really believe that you don't want anything, that everything is fine, that you are different, more evolved, more mature. But deep down, you're just tired of being disappointed. And your birthday is just a symptom. Because if you can't receive attention on a day that is literally about you, where else are you blocking it? What other gestures of affection are you refusing? How many times has someone tried to get close to you and you turned them away? How many times has someone wanted to include you and you said no need? You think you're protecting yourself, but maybe you're just isolating yourself and calling it wisdom. But now I need to tell you something that will bother you, because up to this point, I've validated you. I've explained where this pain comes from. I've shown you that it's not your fault, that you've learned to protect yourself, that society demands too much, that performance is exhausting, that you have legitimate reasons for not wanting to participate in all this theater, and all of that is true. But there's another truth you need to hear. If you can't receive affection, the problem isn't just with others, it's with you too. And I know that hurts. I know it's easier to blame the superficiality of the world, to blame people who only send automatic congratulations, to blame social pressure, blame the past, blame those who disappointed you. But at some point, you need to look in the mirror and ask yourself, how many times have I blocked something genuine because I was afraid it wasn't? Because here's the hardest truth of all. You may be rejecting exactly what you've always wanted to receive. Someone tries to do something special for you, and you minimize it. Someone wants to give you attention, and you deflect it. Someone says you deserve it, and you think, no, I don't deserve it. And at the end of the day, when you're alone, you feel that emptiness and think, no one really cares. But wait, does no one care? Or are you not letting them care? That's the question that changes everything. And it's the question you've probably never asked yourself. Because it's more comfortable to believe that the world is cold than to admit that you've built a wall so high that even you can't climb it anymore. It's easier to say people are fake than to recognize that you filter everything you receive through the lens of mistrust. It's safer to believe that you don't need anything than to admit that you're so afraid of needing that you'd rather stop feeling. And look, I get it. I understand perfectly. Because when you were disappointed, when you waited and no one showed up, when you believed and were ignored, you did what any human being would do. You protected yourself. You created rules. You decided you would never put yourself in that position again. And that saved you. For a while, it really did save you. But now, is it still saving you? Or is it imprisoning you? Because there's a difference between not needing external validation and being terrified of external validation. Between being emotionally independent and being emotionally isolated. Between choosing not to celebrate and not being able to celebrate even when someone gives you the chance. And if you're honest with yourself, you know which one you are. You know if it's choice or if it's fear. You know if you really don't care or if you've just learned to pretend you don't care because it's less painful than admitting that you wanted someone to care. And here's the turning point. You don't have to keep living like this. You don't have to wear that armor all the time. You don't have to test every gesture of affection to see if it's genuine enough before accepting it. You don't have to be afraid to take up space, to be celebrated, to believe, even for a day, that you matter. And yes, it's scary, because it means letting go of control. It means trusting that someone can disappoint you, and you will survive. It means allowing someone to see you for who you really are, and accepting that it may not last forever. It means saying thank you without minimizing it, without analyzing it, without questioning it. It means being vulnerable, and there's nothing more terrifying than that. But there's also nothing more liberating. Because while you protect yourself from every possible disappointment, you're also depriving yourself of every possible connection. While you reject what might be fake, you're also rejecting what might be real. And in the end, what are you left with? Your emotional security intact, and a void you no longer know how to fill. So maybe, just maybe, the right question isn't, why should I celebrate my birthday? Maybe the question is, what am I missing by not allowing myself to be celebrated? And if you've made it this far and something inside you is stirring, if something is bothering you, if you're feeling that tightness in your chest, that means I've hit the nail on the head. Then I want you to do something for me. Subscribe to the channel, because this conversation doesn't end here. I'm going to keep confronting you. I'm going to keep showing you truths that you know but don't want to admit. And you need that. You need someone who isn't afraid to poke you, who won't give you easy answers, who won't let you stay comfortable in your own prison. So subscribe and turn on the bell, because you didn't get here by accident. You got here because something in you wants to change. And I'm going to help you. But you have to choose to stay. Now let's talk about the other possibility. The possibility that you're not really driven by fear, that you've really found a different way of being, that for you, genuine celebration doesn't need a stage, an audience, or a public ritual, because not everyone who doesn't celebrate their birthday is running away from something. Some have genuinely found a quieter, more internal, more philosophical way to mark the passage of time. And that's real. It exists. And it needs to be said. There are people who celebrate in other ways, who use their birthday as a day of reflection, not celebration, who look back and think, what have I experienced? Who look ahead and think, what do I want to experience? Who use that day as a pause, not to receive congratulations, but to reconnect with themselves. And that's not escapism, that's depth. Because there is real wisdom in understanding that life is not made up of symbolic milestones, but of ordinary days well lived. That the value of your existence is not concentrated on a specific date, but on how you inhabit each moment. That you don't need external validation because you already have such solid internal validation that nothing outside can shake it. And if you are that person, I respect you deeply, Because you have found something that most people spend their entire lives searching for, the ability to exist without needing applause. But I need to ask you a question, and I need you to be brutally honest with me and with yourself. How do you know that's what it is? How do you know you really don't need it, and that you haven't just convinced yourself that you don't? How do you know it's wisdom and not protection disguised as wisdom? How do you differentiate genuine detachment from defensive detachment? Because here's the tricky part. They look exactly the same on the outside. From the outside, a person who doesn't celebrate out of philosophical maturity and a person who doesn't celebrate out of fear of disappointment do exactly the same thing. They let the day pass. They don't make a fuss. They don't expect anything. And when someone asks, they give the same answer. Oh, it's just another day. The difference is inside, in the feeling, in what happens when someone really insists on doing something for you. If you are someone who really doesn't need external validation, you accept it calmly. You thank them lightly. You don't bother. You don't analyze. You don't minimize. You just accept and move on. Because for you, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't complete you, but it doesn't threaten you either. But if you're someone who is protecting yourself, you feel something different. You feel discomfort. You feel the need to deflect. You feel the urge to say you didn't have to. You feel like you need to do something with that gesture. Analyze it, deconstruct it, return it. Because it affected you. Because it touched on something you don't want to touch. And that feeling is the sign. If receiving affection bothers you, it's not because you don't need affection. It's because you're afraid of it. And look, I'm not saying you need to change. I'm not saying you need to start throwing parties, posting stories, replying to 50 messages. That's not what this is about. It never was. It's about you being honest with yourself. It's about you looking inside and recognizing what is choice and what is conditioning, what is freedom and what is imprisonment, what is wisdom and what is scar tissue. Because you can continue not celebrating, but now you'll know why. And that changes everything. If you don't celebrate because you really don't need to, because you found deeper ways to inhabit time, because your inner value is so solid that nothing external can shake you, then that's fine. Keep going. You're on the right track. But if you don't celebrate because you're afraid to wait and be disappointed, because you're afraid of being seen and forgotten, because you're afraid of taking up space and realizing that no one wanted you to take it up, then you're not free. You're trapped. And you're calling that prison maturity. And the hardest part, the part no one wants to hear, you're the only one who can set yourself free. No one is going to break into your fortress. No one is going to tear down your walls. No one is going to force you to receive affection, to take up space, to believe that you deserve it. Because you're too good at deflecting. You're too good at saying it's okay. You're too good at appearing resolved. So people believe you, and they leave you alone. And you're left alone. And you call it peace of mind. But deep down in some hidden corner of your mind that you only visit at dawn, you know it's not peace of mind. You know it's exhaustion. Exhaustion from waiting. Exhaustion from disappointment. Exhaustion from feeling. And you have the right to be tired. You have the right to protect yourself. But you also have the right to try again, to let your guard down, to take a chance, to trust that even if it hurts, you will survive. Because you've survived before, and you will survive again. The difference is that this time, maybe you won't have to survive alone. So now let's get to the part you weren't expecting, the part that will completely break you down. Because up until now, we've talked about protection, about fear, about scars, about how you learned to expect nothing so you wouldn't get hurt. And all of that is true. All of that is real. But there's a deeper layer, a layer you've never admitted to, a layer that, when I say it out loud, will make you pause the video and take a deep breath. Here it is. You don't celebrate your birthday because deep down, you don't believe you deserve to be celebrated. And it's not about low self-esteem. It's not about thinking you're ugly, incompetent, or a failure. It's about something more subtle, more insidious. It's about you having internalized at some point in your life the idea that you only deserve attention when you produce something, when you deliver something, when you're useful, when you're needed. But on your birthday you don't have to do anything. You don't have to deliver anything. You just have to exist and receive. And that for you is unbearable. Because somewhere along the way, you learned that your value lies in what you do, not in who you are. You learned that love is conditional, that attention must be earned, that you can't just be and expect that to be enough. So when someone wants to celebrate you just for being alive, just for being here, just because you exist, you don't know what to do with that. Because you never learned to receive something without feeling that you owe something in return. You don't celebrate because you don't know how to accept that your existence in itself is enough. That you don't need to justify the space you occupy. that you don't need to produce, deliver, or serve to deserve a day of attention. And that is the deepest wound of all, because it's not just about birthdays, it's about how you live the rest of your life. Always demanding of yourself, always proving yourself, always thinking you need to deserve what you receive, always feeling indebted. And when someone gives you something for free, attention, affection, celebration, you panic, because you don't know how to repay them. You don't know how to balance the scales. So you reject it, you minimize it. You say you didn't have to, not because you don't want it, but because you can't bear the weight of receiving without giving back. And look where that has gotten you. You've become someone who gives all the time, who helps, who supports, who is always available, but who never asks for anything, who never expects anything, who never takes up space. You've become the friend everyone counts on, but no one really knows, because you've never allowed yourself to be vulnerable enough to need someone. And on your birthday, when it should be about you, when it should be the one day you don't have to justify anything, you disappear. Because the idea of being the center, of receiving without giving, of existing without producing, is terrifying. But here's what you need to understand. You don't have to deserve your own birthday. You just have to be alive. And I know it sounds obvious. I know it sounds simple. But for you, it's not. For you, existing has never been enough. For you, there always had to be something more. There always had to be a reason. There always had to be a why. But there isn't. There doesn't need to be. The day you were born isn't about what you've achieved, what you've produced, what you've delivered. It's about you being here. And that in itself is cause for celebration. And if you can't believe that, then it's not about your birthday. It's about you not being able to believe that your existence has intrinsic value, that you don't have to do anything to deserve to be alive, that you are not indebted to the world, that you don't have to justify the air you breathe. And that belief is killing you inside, because you are exhausted. You are tired of always having to deserve, of always having to prove yourself, of always having to justify yourself. And your birthday is just the place where this becomes most visible, because there you can't escape. There the only thing you need to do is exist. And if you can't do that, if you can't simply receive without guilt, without discomfort, without feeling that you owe something in return, then you need to rethink everything, because you're not living. You are serving a sentence that no one gave you, but that you carry as if it were real. And maybe, just maybe, your next birthday can be different. Not with a party, not with cake, not with performance, but with permission. Permission to exist, permission to receive, permission to believe, even if just for one day, that you don't have to deserve to be here. Because you already deserve it, just for being alive, just for getting this far, just for being. And if no one has ever told you that, I'm telling you now, you deserve it. Not because you did something, not because you delivered something, but because you are. And that has always been enough. And now the last part, the part where you decide. Because up to this point, I've shown you everything. I've shown you where the pain comes from. I've shown you how you protect yourself. I've shown you that protection has become imprisonment. I've shown you that you may be rejecting what you've always wanted. And I've shown you the deepest wound. You don't believe you deserve to be celebrated just for existing. And now you know. You can no longer pretend you don't know. So what are you going to do with that? Because you have two options. The first is to close this video, go back to your life, and continue doing what you've always done. Continue not celebrating. Continue saying you don't care. Continue rejecting affection. Continue convincing yourself that you're fine. And maybe you really are. Maybe you've heard all this and recognized that in your case, it really is a choice. It really is wisdom. And if that's the case, that's fine. You don't need to change. But if it's not, if something inside you stirred, if something bothered you, if you recognize that it's not a choice, it's fear, then you have a second option. And the second option is the hardest, because the second option doesn't come with a manual. It doesn't come with step-by-step instructions. It doesn't come with a guarantee that it will work. The second option is try again. And I know it sounds vague. I know it sounds scary, but it's simple. It's allowing. It's a little at a time. It's starting small. On your next birthday, when someone sends you a message, you don't minimize it. You don't deflect. You don't say you didn't have to. You just reply, thank you. That means a lot. And you let the sentence hang there. You don't add anything. You don't explain. You don't turn the moment into something less than it is. You just receive. And it's going to be weird. It's going to be uncomfortable. You'll want to deflect. You'll feel like you need to do something with it, but you don't. You just let it happen. And maybe next year you'll say to someone close to you, I don't usually celebrate, but if you want to do something simple, I'll accept. And you see what happens. You don't create expectations. You don't demand anything. You just open a door that has been locked for years. And maybe that person will disappoint you. Maybe they'll forget. Maybe it won't be what you expected and you'll survive because you've survived before. But it could also be different. Maybe that person really cares. Maybe they'll do something genuine and you'll need to receive it without analyzing, without questioning, without diminishing it. And that's terrifying, but it's also liberating because for the first time, you're testing. You're allowing the world to show you that it can be different from what you've learned. You're giving something new a chance to happen, and even if it goes wrong, you tried. And that's revolutionary. It's not about celebrating birthdays. It never was. It's about allowing yourself to take up space, to receive affection, to believe that you deserve it. It's about dismantling brick by brick the fortress that protected you but now imprisons you. And no, you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to be strong all the time. You can ask for help. You can say, I have a hard time with this. You can admit that you don't know how to receive, but that you want to learn. And maybe that's the bravest thing you can do. It's not celebrating. It's admitting that you want to celebrate, but you don't know how. It's admitting that you want to be seen, but you're afraid. It's admitting that you're not as well as you seem. And when you do that, when you let your guard down even for a second, you give permission for something real to happen. You give permission for someone to reach out to you. And maybe, just maybe, you'll discover that the world isn't as dangerous as you've been taught. So here's the question I want you to answer in the comments. If someone wanted to celebrate you tomorrow, would you let them? And if not, what's stopping you? Answer honestly, not for me, for yourself, because you need to hear your own answer. You need to put what you're feeling into words. And maybe as you write, you'll realize something you hadn't realized before. And if you've made it this far, you've already taken a step beyond most people. You watch the videos. You reflect on each idea. Now the question is, how far do you want to go with this? If you want to take the next step and truly apply this knowledge to your life, the White Rabbit codes are ready for you. The link is in the video description. Remember, success is a decision. The choice is yours. Count on me and follow the White Rabbit. Because in the end, what matters is not whether or not you celebrate your birthday. What matters is whether you allow yourself to exist, whether you allow yourself to be seen. If you allow yourself to believe that your existence in itself is already a reason to celebrate. And perhaps the greatest gift you can give yourself is not a cake. It's not a party, but it is permission. Permission to be here. Permission to take up space. Permission to receive without guilt, because you deserve it. You have always deserved it. And maybe it's time for you to believe it.